Testing, 1, 2. Good morning, everyone. We apologize for the delay starting this morning. There was, for lack of a better word, there was an emergency up on the second floor that the clerk's office was dealing with, and not everybody could get down here exactly when we wanted them to. So we've got all members of committee here now, so we're going to start the meeting in a second. So good morning, everybody. I'd now like to call our 18th of February 2014 Environment Committee meeting to order. Are there any declarations of interest this morning? Okay, seeing none, I'd now like to confirm the minutes of November 19th, 2013. Are those minutes carried? Carried, thank you. Communications, there's one item on the agenda today which is a response to an inquiry, and it has to do with the use of Molochs in the City of Ottawa. So that document is attached to the agenda for people's review. So the first item on the agenda is going to be a presentation. It's a verbal update with regards to committee, what we've done last year, where we're going this year. The second item on the agenda, and so I'll obviously hold the first one. The second item on the agenda is the status update of Environment Committee inquiries and motions for the period ending the 7th of February 2014. Is that item received? Received? Thank you. And the final item, which I'm going to hold, is the Ottawa River Action Plan. I've asked staff, both from the Environmental Services Department and the Infrastructure Services Department, to provide us with a thorough update this morning about this item, and so we're going to get to that after the verbal update. So again, everyone, want to welcome committee members and staff and residents to our first Environment Committee of 2014. The year ahead is going to be eventful and exciting, and we know that significant capital projects that have been undertaken by Council for the last 3 years are actually starting to really transform Ottawa and the way we move around it. So not only will these projects make our great city more livable, but we know that these projects and these transformations are also going to have a significant impact on our environment. In December 2012, Council approved the construction of the Confederation Line Light Rail project. When this project is done, it's going to be the equivalent of removing 7,300 cars annually from our streets. It means that we're going to burn 10 million fewer liters of diesel fuel a year, which not only means less emissions in Canada's capital, but it also means significant savings to our budget. We also intend to incorporate local aspects of the city into our designs, to reduce waste and to personalize the rail line. So, for example, the Confederation Line is going to use ash trees that were removed to EAB for the ceiling features in standalone stations along the line. As we also know, Ottawa on the Move has accelerated $500 million in infrastructure renewal funding in advance of the major Confederation Line work that's going to make sure that our sewers, water mains, and culverts are maintained and in good working order. Also, last year, as part of the Transportation Master Plan, we've outlined 35 new kilometers of rail, which again is going to bring added benefits to the nation's capital by putting close to 67% of our residents within 5 kilometers of rail. We're almost finished our O-Train expansion, which is an investment of $59 million, which will now double transit service along that corridor. And during the same time, Council has invested a record $26 million into cycling. As we know, construction of the new Lansdowne continues this year, with the new stadium set to open shortly. And it's going to be a marquee project for many reasons, including the fact that one of the guiding principles of this new stadium was environmental sustainability. So features that will contribute to a greener Lansdowne include replacing asphalt with green space, storing stormwater for irrigation, diversifying the urban tree species, and including urban agriculture features such as a heritage orchard. The new stadium is going to use cutting-edge technology to treat stormwater, which will actually be used in the park fountains. So this is just one example of how we're doing our best to try and green Lansdowne. And we all know that the site's also going to be accessible for pedestrians, cyclists, and for users of transit. So we know that these initiatives fit into the city's overall environmental strategy because we need to make sure that we're managing growth of our city in a sustainable way. We also have to focus our priorities so that we balance the social, economic, and environmental interests of the city. Ottawa continues to receive numerous accolades, and in the last year alone, we were acknowledged by Corporate Knights as being the most sustainable city in Canada. Walk Friendly Ontario gave Ottawa the highest designation so far. We're now called a Walk Friendly City. Share the Road Cycling Coalition called us Ontario's first ever gold bicycle-friendly community. And we were also recently named one of Canada's greenest employers. This committee plays an important role in the success and transformation of Ottawa, and we are investing in better infrastructure, making decisions on how to provide high-quality services to our residents, and doing so at the same time that we protect and enrich our beautiful capital. Members will recall in 2012, we successfully implemented a change to increase our weekly green bin collection, or our green bin collection to weekly, and began biweekly residual garbage collection later on that year. And 2013 saw great improvements to our city's solid waste diversion efforts. The service delivery changes were made at the right time, and they were the right decision, as evidenced by the fact that last year, overall curbside diversion rates have risen to 52%, which is 7% higher than last year, and it's the first time that this city has ever reached diversion rates more than 50%. Our reliance on the landfill has decreased. In 2012, approximately 175,000 tons of material went to landfill. This is a decrease in 19,000 tons from 2012 and almost 25,000 tons from 2011. So again, we're seeing significant decreases in what's actually going to Trail Road. The total amount of organics collected last year, and this includes organics from households and leaf and yard waste, went up by 24% over 2012, increasing from 67,000 tons to 83,000 tons. So last year, we collected 83,000 tons of organic material. And we have to congratulate our community for working so hard to get this done. This helps us save $10 million per year. So far for 2013, and if you add 2014, we're looking at $20 million in operational savings. But most importantly, we're extending the life of our landfill and avoiding what will be a vigorous debate about where to site a new landfill by extending the life of our landfill by many, many years. And I want to acknowledge committee and council for their work in getting this done and for continuing to encourage our residents to think about where their waste is going. Our Green Bins in Schools program continues to grow, and we have well over 200 private and public schools participating in this program. And when you look at just the Catholic and public school boards combined, more than 60% of every school in those boards are actually contributing to the Green Bins in Schools programs. Last year, we also went out into the community to talk about different elements of waste. We held 4 waste fairs last year to talk about waste diversion. Residents were asked to give their feedback about long-term waste management, and we'll see that feedback come forward this year in the long-term waste management strategy, which staff are finalizing. We also implemented a zero waste policy at City Hall. So we're walking the talk, and people noticed actually last January we came back and all garbage cans were removed from offices. And so we're doing our best to try and promote more diversion at City Hall. We piloted 26 recycling bins on Elgin Street, which were very successful, and we'll see in 2014 that we're extending that pilot down on Laurier Avenue. We also continue to work with the QP 503 in our partnership with them that continues to save us money during our waste collection efforts. We combine waste collection contracts for multi-residential facilities and city facilities, and we're doing our best to encourage more diversion, not just at city facilities, but in our multi-residential units as well. In March 2013, the city hosted its first ever greenhouse gas roundtable, which was a full day of thoughtful discussion and debate. And the results of that day's work are being compiled and incorporated into the city's renewed Air Quality and Climate Change Action Plan. And I'm confirming again that that plan will be confirmed by committee and council by the end of Q2 this year. We've also continued to invest in our green fleet. We now have 50 hybrid vehicles, 4 electric ice resurfacers, and 1 electric vehicle in our complement. And we know that these investments have direct environmental benefits. The investment of the hybrids alone has reduced our fuel consumption by a whopping 96,000 litres in 2013 and reduced our GHG emissions by 179 tonnes. We've also worked with Hydro Ottawa on our electric vehicle charging site at City Hall, and I think today I saw a little red car plugged in out there. So we're trying to make options available for people who want to use different methods of transportation. We're also working on environmental initiatives through our development opportunities into the Green Building Promotion Program, and we know that responsible leadership and good business sense can also be found by doing things the green way. So we know that this project alone allows the impact of construction activities to be diminished, whether it's the cost of owning and operating a building over its life cycle or the impact of the construction in terms of people's footprint. Smart Energy Program was launched in 2010, and over a 5-year period, we can report that we've saved 9.3 million kilowatt hours in annual electric fees, 4,775,000 of cubic meters of natural gas are being saved every year. 93,000 cubic meters of potable water is being saved every year. And we've converted 11 sites from oil or propane to natural gas use. In 2013, the city also undertook a number of initiatives to improve energy efficiency at city facilities, including the conversion of inefficient lights to LED in many city facilities, including parking garages, fire stations, recreation facilities, and OC transpo stations. We also replaced exterior lighting as part of the city's major LED initiative at 20 city facilities, and we converted electric humidifiers to gas units at the Champlain LTC and Ben Franklin Place. We also did boiler retrofits to high-efficiency condensing units at the Champlain LTC, OC Transpo Head Office, Pinecrest Arena, the Heron Community Centre, and the Alta Vista Library. And we're going to continue with more energy retrofits throughout the city throughout 2014. And you'll notice in this chambers alone that we actually introduced lower consumption lighting as part of our energy retrofit. And this year, we're going to announce an awesome partnership with Ottawa Community Housing as it pertains to energy retrofits. On the forestry side, last year 3,200 trees were removed, but we planted 5,700 new ones in urban areas as a result of emerald ash borer. When you combine that tree planting with every other initiative in the city, Ottawa planted 133,565 trees last year. Last year, we invested $900,000 in combating EMB as part of our forestry strategy. And this year, we're going to increase that amount and continue working on other options to address EAB, such as the partnership we have with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, which approved 2 non-native species of wasps that were released in June to help us control EAB. Our staff are now working with researchers to evaluate the effectiveness of these biocontrols, and we're looking at ways to incorporate these into the city's long-term EAB strategy. On the waterfront, we continued strengthening our commitment to protect our most valuable resource, which is water. And we know that residents can happily turn on their taps, use water for drinking, cooking, splash pads, swimming pools, and never ever think about the quality or the quantity of the water that they're using. We've ensured that it's safe all the time. It's the best in the world, and we're proud of this, But we must continue making significant investments to make sure that our water is safe and viable. We continued our tradition of excellence by receiving perfect records from the province again in 2013. We also began the year by overseeing the passage of the city's first multi-year water and waste rate budget, which we've seen again in 2014. So it provides our residents with certainty about the direction of city services, finances, and rate levels, and also ensures predictable longer-term funding for city programs and services. And it forces us to remain disciplined with our spending in that regard throughout the term when you have multi-year budgets. We made drinking water system improvements in the village of Carp by investing $1 million in a pumping station and high-lift improvements. And we also made investments to the emergency power systems in the villages of Richmond, Kings Park, and Munster. We implemented the West End Flood Investigation Action Plan, which is a $34 million plan to protect residents in the West End from the risk of flooding. And the majority of these projects are completed, and we expect that the entire plan will be finished by the end of 2014. We've also completed the Advanced Water Meter Initiative on time, on budget. We take water and the protection of water quality seriously and enacted new bylaw amendments this last year to bring our water bylaw in compliance with regulatory systems used in other comparable Ontario municipalities. We also trained all members of Council under the Safe Water Drinking Act, which speaks to the standard of care, which makes Council more directly accountable for the safety of our drinking water. In 2013, we saw the lowest level ever of combined sewage overflows in the Ottawa River in the last 8 years since we started the Combined Sewage Overflow Monitoring Program in 2006. This is due in large part to investments made by this committee in the Ottawa River Action Plan. So the spending plan for sewer separations was also accelerated as part of the Ottawa River Action Plan, and we increased the budget from $47 million to $88 million. So now, we're going to see even more combined sewage storage projects being completed. And I look forward to hearing more about ORAP later on in this meeting when we receive an update from staff. In 2013, the city also completed improvements and modifications to the Dowdle Municipal Drain in Rideau Goulburn, which now reduces the risk of flooding and improves drainage and stormwater management in the surrounding rural, agricultural, residential, and commercial properties in the watershed. We also began construction on the David Adams Municipal Drain, which reduces flooding on agricultural lands and city roads, and we expect this work to be completed in 2014. In total, in 2013, we completed maintenance repair on 45 municipal drains, totaling 34 kilometers in length, which definitely improves drainage for rural lands and our roads. We also inspected, approved, and processed 15 tile installations and loan applications for farmers to improve crop productivity and to reduce surface runoff of excess nutrients into receiving drains and water courses. Last year, the Environment Committee also received a report about the city's wet weather infrastructure management plan, which is now going to align city services and departments to reduce the threats of flooding, increase capacity for growth, and to minimize pollution in our rivers and streams. So again, there's a theme here that we're continuing to invest in our infrastructure that supports water. So we saw in 2014 that we're going to invest more money into our tree program, and we're now going to ensure, as we did last year, that we continue to replace trees at a ratio of 2 to 1. So every time a tree comes down, we make sure that 2 are being put in place. This year, we also committed $12.6 million to continued investment in the raw sewage pumping station at the Robert O. Pickard Environmental Centre, also known as ROPEC, to upgrade the facility to ensure that we continue to keep wastewater sewage out of the Ottawa River. We'll also see another $36 million invested in sewers this year. Later on this year, you'll also see us discuss more about the storage tanks for the Ottawa River Action Plan, and as we know, this year's budget secures $65 million of the city's portion of the funds needed to design and build the tunnels. We do need our federal and provincial partners to contribute as well, and we know that when the construction of these tunnels are completed, that Ottawa will become a world leader in how we treat wastewater. And I was pleased last Thursday to hear Prime Minister Harper release the details of the Build Canada Fund to make sure that we're aware of the application deadlines. And in speaking with the Deputy City Manager of Planning and Infrastructure, Nancy Shepherds, she assures me that the minute that the applications open, that we're ready to go. And as mentioned by the Mayor, we're going to do so imminently. And I know that our federal and provincial partners will be at the table with us this time as they were last time. We're also going to continue holding the course with our solid waste plan, and we're going to continue to do what we can to encourage the community to continue using their green bins, blue and black boxes. And as we heard earlier, there are significant benefits in using this program to keep waste out of our Trail Road landfill. We also need to continue working with the province and to ensure that the provincial legislation is passed to make sure that the cost of recycling is more fairly shared between government and industry. And we also need to continue to push the province to do more to reduce packaging and to increase waste diversion in the industrial, commercial, and institutional sectors. And again, this year we're going to work more on water. And I can say that it was a highlight last year when I met with Alexandra Cousteau, with Alain Gantier from Infrastructure Services, to talk about the Ottawa River Action Plan. And when Ms. Cousteau's team was in Ottawa, she actually commented, having looked at many other rivers in North America, how advanced Ottawa was in the protection of our water and the quality of our drinking water. And while we're proud of the work that we've done so far, we know that we have to do more. So later on this year, I'm going to ask staff to work with us to host a water conservation roundtable. And I'm going to invite members of council to provide us with names of interested residents and community groups who want to participate in this roundtable and provide us with their feedback, their input, and their advice as to how we can do a better job working towards water conservation. And I look forward to that. As part of some of our summer events, we're going to go out to local beaches to talk to residents about our high quality of water and to ensure that we're doing what we can to promote using water from the taps as the first resort, especially when we're on site at big festivals and events where people actually have water tanks being brought in now to reduce the amount of plastic that's being consumed sometimes at larger events with water bottles. We're also going to finish this year the Southeastern Subwatershed, and we'll hear later on from staff shortly, probably within the next month, an update as to where the consultants are with that project. But we know that we'll finish that, which again is another big project within ORAP. We're going to continue developing the Stormwater Master Plan and the Source Water Master Plan as well, and we hope that some of the information that we receive at the Water Conservation Roundtable will actually be used as staff develop these documents, because we know that Ottawa has a wealth of resources, and we want to hear from our community in that regard. So work continues in 2014 on the Orleans Water Main Link. And we also are going to continue upgrading large construction projects, such as the one on Rideau Street, Churchill Avenue, Sussex, Trim Road, and Highway 417. So again, we're continuing to upgrade our infrastructure to make sure it's reliable and available. So I think that we can see that 2014 is ambitious in terms of the amount of construction projects that we're working on to deal with the most precious resource. So when we look back at 2013, there was a lot of change that took place. A lot of projects and programs were completed. Many projects that had multiple years to go were started or finished in that time period. But certainly, we can see how the investment that this committee is making, not just in resources during the tax budget, but also the water rate budget, is making improvements. So I look forward to our work ahead this year. I want to acknowledge and thank committee members for the work that they're doing. Certainly want to acknowledge and thank staff, but most importantly thank our community, who also continue to provide us with their advice and their input as to issues that are of importance to them. So merci, and thank you very much. Oh, sorry, Mr. Clerk, I have the committee coordinator has asked me if a public delegation can speak to this item.
With respect, Madam Chair, I listened intently to your environmental review of 2013, And I think contextually it's remarkably akin to a State of City address. It doesn't really bring in new issues or public policy matters that warrant that type of or invite that type of delegation or discussion. In addition, Madam Chair, the procedure bylaw does not permit this committee, unlike the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee, to have any sort of open mic dialogue. So with respect, I would not suggest that there are any delegations on this issue.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. O'Connor. And what I recommend that if anyone wants to comment on some of the items that we're working on in 2014, which are part of the term of council priorities, which were passed in July of 2011, or any of the items that are in the 2014 budget, to feel free to follow up directly with the coordinator's office, and we'll make sure that that information gets the appropriate staff member and members of council. And I understand that Councillor Chernushenko, you have a motion?
Yes, please. I'd like to move that your verbal report, the chair's verbal report, be added to the minutes of this meeting.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Is that carried? Carried. Thank you very much. So the next item on our agenda is segueing from this update. It's the Ottawa River Action Plan update, and I'm going to ask Mr. Dickson Weir and Mr. Alain Gantier if they could please come forward to provide us with an update. Members should have received the slideshow by now in the share directory. If not, we can make it available. And following the presentation, we'll open the floor up to questions from committee members. Mr. Weir, I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Committee, it gives me great pleasure that I'm here today to provide you with our annual report on the 4th year of implementation of the Ottawa River Action Plan. As a corporate initiative, this plan is drawing on the skills and expertise of a number of departments here at the City, including environmental services, infrastructure services, planning and growth management, and the finance department to support its implementation. Each department has played a key role in advancing this plan to this point and will continue to do so over the next months and years. Today's presentation will highlight the following. We'll provide committee with the status of all ORAP projects. We'll document and speak to the significant successes achieved to date. We'll go over the financial summary of the commitments to date and also speak to the action items planned for 2014. Mr. Gantier will also provide us with a detailed update on the combined sewage storage tunnel project and how it's advancing. The Ottawa River Action Plan is consistent with and very supportive of Council's priority of environmental stewardship. In fact, it contributes specifically and directly to these three: improving stormwater management, enhancing and protecting our natural systems, and reducing our environmental impact. The Ottawa River Action Plan takes an innovative approach to environmental stewardship. It has meant shifting our focus away from end-of-pipe solutions and using the environment as our measuring stick. This, in turn, leads to decisions that are more comprehensive, integrative, effective, and, in the end, sustainable. The Ottawa River Action Plan is a long-term plan initiated in 2009 and consists of 17 projects that focus on these four main elements: reducing combined sewage overflows, reducing stormwater impacts, improving wastewater treatment, and measuring and monitoring our performance. This table provides a quick summary of each project and identifies whether the project is complete, as shown in yellow, near completion, as shown in green, or is a long-term initiative, as indicated by the blue arrow. As you can quickly see, 7 projects are now complete, 3 are nearing completion, and 7 are longer-term projects or initiatives on which we've made good progress. In terms of the first priority of reducing combined sewage overflows, 8 of the 17 ORAP projects are focused on accomplishing just that. 4 of these CSO projects are now complete, and as a result, the city and the environment has already realized significant gains that I will elaborate on as I go through this presentation. For your information, the completed projects are our innovative real-time control project, the review of sewer interconnections, the development of the wet weather infrastructure management plan, and the reduction of debris flowing to the Ottawa River through the installation of floatable traps. I will describe all of these projects in more detail today and highlight some of those specific achievements. The real-time control system maximizes the capture of combined sewage within the collection system using automated gates and controls. We are taking advantage of all available capacity in the Ottawa interceptor and outfall sewers. This project has involved upgrading combined sewer flow regulators with real-time control systems to increase the volume of sewage and stormwater captured and redirected to wastewater treatment plant for treatment during wet weather. The RTC system became fully operational in 2011, and as a result, significant volumes of combined sewage have been retained and redirected to ROPEC for full secondary treatment. The photo above shows the construction of the major upgrades to the West End regulator in 2010, and if you have a look at the gentleman in the chamber to the left, I think that'll give you a good sense of the magnitude of these chambers. This particular chamber is located in Le Breton Flats. In terms of measuring our success, this graph does exactly that. I think if you look to the left, we're depicting the CSO volume, and along the bottom, a year-by-year analysis. And as you can see, significant progress has been made towards ORAP's focus of reducing combined sewage overflows, specifically and most directly through the implementation of the real-time control system. Last year, 2013, saw our lowest discharge of combined sewage on record at approximately 203,000 cubic meters. CSO volumes have been reduced by over 80% between 2006, our first year of reporting, and 2013. As we look at the last 3 years, it appears that the level of CSO capture and the performance of RTC is stabilizing. And when we look at the performance of other cities in the province and their progress and level of control, I want to assure you that Ottawa is very much in the lead. In terms of CSO and storm outfall monitoring, this project balances risk and impact of CSOs with improving system monitoring to allow for timely identification and response to equipment failures, reducing the risk and severity of those failures, and improving our understanding of how the system responds under different conditions to facilitate continuous improvement. Through a risk-based assessment, we have reviewed the operation of each of the non-RTC outfalls and determined which ones should be permanently monitored. Based on this report, 2 locations have been retained as candidates for permanent flow monitoring, including Clegg Street in Old Ottawa East, and the Hemlock Pumping Station in Rockcliffe Park. These 2 sites are being upgraded to install monitoring equipment, and while this design work is now complete, we're expecting that construction will start shortly and be complete within the year. The Combined Sewage Storage Tunnel, or CSST, is the largest single project of the ORAP program. As befits a project of this scope and magnitude, we will have Alain Ganche from Infrastructure Services provide a more detailed presentation regarding this particular project later in the presentation. In terms of sewer interconnections, older parts of the sewer system had interconnections between sanitary and storm sewers to help prevent basement flooding and protect public health. A review has been conducted to determine which interconnections require readjustment or should be abandoned altogether. The removal and adjustment of interconnections that are susceptible to overflows will lower the amount of overflows released to the Ottawa River. This will improve water quality and reduce the number of beach closures. As a result of this assessment, a flow diversion project was completed recently at the Alvin Heights combined sewage overflow outfall in 2003 to reduce the overflow risk. As mentioned previously, continued sewer separation is required to reduce combined sewage overflow volumes. This graph depicts where we started and the progress we've made to date. If you look at the perimeter as defined by the dark blue line, that was the original area that was serviced by a single pipe system to collect both sanitary and stormwater, and is called the combined sewage area. Since 1960, the City of Ottawa has been working to separate combined sewers, and has spent somewhere in the order of $800 million worth of capital investment on sewer separation, and has completed that scope that is defined in the light shaded blue. The area in pink in the center of the diagram is the area known as the ultimate combined sewage area, and this area is not destined for sewer separation, but will be serviced through the combined sewage storage tunnel. And that decision was made as a result of consideration of things like disruption to the community, cost effectiveness, the time to implement, and with all of that consideration and public review and comment, it was determined that the most effective solution would be to manage through the construction of the combined sewage storage tunnel. However, as the map depicted, there is still work to be done in terms of getting down to the ultimate combined sewer area, and we have made significant progress in the last few years. Through the Council-approved Ottawa on the Move, a number of sewer separation projects have been accelerated into ORAP's original 5-year spending plan window. Of the 35 kilometers of combined sewer that remained in 2009 outside of the ultimate combined sewer area, 15 of those kilometers have been separated to date. 20 kilometers of combined sewers remain and will be completed in coordination with the Integrated Renewal Program. This particular picture was taken last summer along Rideau Street. The Wet Weather Infrastructure Master Plan was received by Committee and Council in 2013. The plan's objectives are to achieve flood protection, capacity for growth, and pollution control. The plan focuses on the following 6 main programs as depicted in this slide: capacity management, extraneous flow reduction, flood control, operations and maintenance, pollution prevention and control plan, and ongoing sewer separation. The installation of floatable traps in the combined sewer area was completed in 2012. These devices are located within the catch basins that collect the water and trap floatable debris from the street and prevent it from entering the collection system and the natural environment. Approximately 2,000 traps that were installed in the ultimate combined sewer area and are now preventing floatable debris such as pop and water bottles from reaching the Ottawa River. As you recall, the second element of the Ottawa River Action Plan is reducing stormwater impacts. Most of the urban area within the Greenbelt was developed without stormwater management controls, and uncontrolled runoff contributes to erosion and degrades water quality. These retrofit plans provide a strategy to mitigate uncontrolled stormwater runoff to Pinecrest Creek and the eastern subwatersheds, all of which drain to the Ottawa River. The Pinecrest Creek Stormwater Management Retrofit Plan was approved by Council in 2011 and is focused on mitigating the impacts, those being water quality degradation and erosion, and as they impact Pinecrest Creek and the local reach of the Ottawa River. This Pinecrest Creek Retrofit Plan serves as a pilot to develop methodology to be applied to future stormwater management retrofit plans. It was approved with an estimated 50-year implementation schedule and an estimated $43 million long-term spending plan. Work is progressing on, as the Chair has mentioned, on the Eastern Subwatershed Stormwater Management Retrofit Study, which will mitigate the impacts of uncontrolled stormwater flow from the Greens, Voyageur, Bilberry, Taylor Creeks on the Ottawa River and the downstream Petrie Island Beach. This study is scheduled for completion prior to the end of the year. In terms of implementation, staff are currently working on a number of initiatives, including identification of retrofit opportunities on city-owned properties and right-of-way. Right-of-way projects, pilot projects, exist on Sunnyside Avenue and Stewart Street, and we are working on a feasibility study for new stormwater management pond serving the Pinecrest Westboro Beach area study area. It is important to note that retrofit measures on city property and right-of-way will be coordinated with renewal projects and implemented as opportunities arise. Just to give you a sense of what stormwater management retrofit measures may be, the next couple of slides, these are typically grouped into the following categories. There are lot level controls, such as rainbows, downspout redirection, permeable pavers, all of which can be used to manage stormwater where it falls, or, as the name befits, on the lot. Right-of-way controls, such as areas of infiltration or bioretention areas within the right-of-way, also slow the progress of that rainfall into the collection system. And then finally, there are a grouping of end-of-pipe solutions, which you may already see around the city, such as traditional stormwater management ponds. It has been recognized that the city does not have extensive experience with stormwater retrofit measures within the right-of-way. An opportunity arose to implement stormwater retrofit measures on Stewart Street between King Edward and Freehold to complement the East-West Bikeway Plan. This project is proposed as a pilot project to introduce areas of bioretention within the right-of-way to improve stormwater quality and reduce runoff using a combination of soil, plants, and mulch. A feasibility study was completed in early 2013, and the project is now proceeding to detailed design and construction scheduled for 1 or 2 blocks of Stewart Street in 2015. Another stormwater retrofit pilot project is also underway on Sunnyside Avenue, which is being coordinated with the implementation of area traffic management measures approved for this street between Bronson and Bank. Although these pilot projects are located outside of the Pinecrest Westboro study area, no suitable opportunities for a pilot project in coordination with identified rehabilitation projects were identified for 2012 and 13 in the subject area. Further work is now underway to identify suitable retrofit candidates on city property and within the right-of-way in the Pinecrest Westboro study area for the next few years. These 2 projects, and I speak of Stewart and Sunnyside, are both located within the downtown area where there are no stormwater management controls. Both provide opportunities to introduce stormwater retrofit measures in coordination with other identified projects. And the lessons learned in terms of construction, operation and maintenance, and performance will be used as stormwater retrofit measures are planned for other older areas of the city without any stormwater management controls. Similar to the Pinecrest Westboro plan that has been completed, the Eastern Subwatersheds Plan, which is in progress, will provide a strategy to mitigate uncontrolled stormwater runoff from the Greens, Voyageur, Bilberry, and Taylor Creek watersheds. As part of the update to the Ottawa River model, the impacts of uncontrolled stormwater from these 4 creeks and their impact on the river will be updated, and the proposed retrofits modeled to evaluate the projected benefits both to the Ottawa River and the Petrie Island Beach. The third element of the ORAP plan was involving improving wastewater treatment. Shown here is a photo of the new facility at the R.O. Picard Environmental Center. As you know, that center is a secondary treatment facility that provides a very high level of wastewater treatment. And this location receives and treats all wastewater collected by our rather vast collection system. The final step of that treatment process is disinfecting the treated wastewater prior to its ultimate release to the Ottawa River. At ROPEC, we use chlorine as that final disinfectant. The new dechlorination facility has moved into operation this past year, and the city is now discharging final wastewater effluent with no residual chlorine levels that meet the new wastewater system's effluent regulation standards that come into effect in 2015. And as I noted, the city has taken a proactive approach and initiated this project to remove any residuals before federal regulations requiring such reductions have been implemented. In terms of the final element is one of measuring and monitoring our performance. This is a critical piece of the Ottawa River Action Plan, and all of these projects are intended to enhance our understanding of the positive impacts of the various projects that I have spoken to date. We have made progress across the board on these projects, and I would like to point out that the water environment strategy will be tabled at Committee and Council this year, and public and outreach and education initiatives will be progressing through the balance as well. In terms of financial status, the City has moved forward strongly to implement many projects and has committed funding to get this work done as expeditiously as possible. To that end, fully $142 million has been committed to the various ORAP projects. In the next few years, and with the assistance of our federal and provincial partners, we will construct the largest single capital project of ORAP, the Combined Sewage Storage Tunnel. But beyond that single project, the current plans are to continue to invest in this program with sewer separation works, wet weather infrastructure improvements, and stormwater retrofit programs. In terms of the financial commitments made by our provincial and federal partners, all $33 million of the Investing in Ontario funds provided by the province have been committed to various ORAP projects, and only those funds directed to the Combined Sewage Storage Tunnel, as of yet, are unspent. In other words, fully $31 of $33 million has been spent, and all $33 million has been committed. On the federal ledger, all $33 million of federal funding has been committed to specific projects, and fully $19 million has been invoiced and recovered. Some of the projects towards which the balance of the federal funding has been directed are some of the sewer separation projects, and as we've discussed previously, those projects must proceed on a predetermined schedule in order to minimize the disruption to the community. All of this has been done with the awareness of all partners. In terms of where do we go from here? Well, in 2014, ORAP still has a number of items that it needs to progress on, and I think you'll agree that this is a rather energetic program for 2014. We will continue with the design of the CSO tunnel. We will continue with the implementation of the wet weather infrastructure master plan. As I've mentioned previously, some of the stormwater plans and retrofit implementation programs will come forward, and we will continue with our water environment strategy, Ottawa River model update, and outreach and education. At this point, I would like to pass the microphone to Alain, who will take us through some of the design details the infrastructure services team are involved with the Combined Sewage Storage Tunnel project.
Merci, Dixon. Madame la Présidente, membres du comité, comme il a été indiqué, le projet du tunnel de stockage des égouts unitaires représente un des plus importants projets du plan d'action de la rivière des Outaouais. Et le but de ma présentation ce matin est juste de vous donner une mise à jour sur cet important projet. In my presentation, I will be providing you with an update on where we stand in terms of the budget, the project schedule, some of the delivery options that we have been considering, the alignment for the sewage storage tunnel, and then finally some of the project challenges that we're currently working through. We were last, on the next slide, we were last before you a little over a year ago to table the environmental assessment. And at that time, we indicated that the cost for the project was estimated at $195 million. That project estimate remains at $195 million, and in accordance with the project delivery review principles that were presented to Council in 2013, this is reflective of a Class C estimate, which is aligned with a functional design level. And this represents an all-in estimate, and it also includes inflationary provisions because we know that this project will be completed over a period of a few years. In terms of funding approval, this council, through the 2014 budget and previous budgets, has approved all of its share of the funding, the one-third share of the funding to proceed with the project. and we are currently awaiting funding commitment from the provincial and federal governments. We're certainly well aware through the recent announcements on the status of the Build Canada funding application process, and we will be in a position to proceed with submitting an application as soon as the process will allow us to do so. In terms of schedule, this is the schedule that was presented as part of the environmental assessment, and it was really presented with the main intent of protecting the downtown core from construction during the Canada's 150th celebrations, which will be taking place in 2017. And in terms of status on the next slide, protecting the core from construction remains our key objective. We are now nearing completion on the preliminary design. We have completed a value engineering process that really is looking at improving the overall value of this project. And part of that process is looking at the ability to accelerate the timelines for this important project. At this point, we are targeting having the tender ready for issuance by the end of this year, in Q4 of this year. And proceeding with the tender is dependent on funding commitment by the other two levels of government. As such, when the funding commitments have been confirmed, we will be in a better position to confirm the actual construction timelines to this committee. In terms of project delivery, we have been exploring different options in terms of project delivery options that build on variations of design, bid, build, finance. But since we don't have full funding commitment yet from the other levels of government, we are proceeding at this point using a traditional design, bid, build approach, because that approach allows us to continue to move the project forward. We are having discussions with Infrastructure Ontario as we continue to explore different procurement opportunities. And through the recent federal announcements, we are aware that the federal government will be requiring a P3 assessment to be completed on projects with values over $100 million. Now, we are trying to get more details on that assessment process, but this is something that we have been looking at over the last year, whether or not this would be a candidate for a P3 project. So we will be in a good position to respond to that assessment when the details are provided. The only thing that we cannot confirm at this point is what impacts this may have on the schedule in terms of how long the federal assessment may take in terms of our submission. Over the last year, there has been extensive geotechnical assessments completed in addition to the work that was undertaken as part of Confederation Line. This has allowed us to be able to confirm the tunnel alignment, and as you can see on the diagram in front of you, the top line that borders the Ottawa River is basically the existing interceptor outfall sewer. The red line that goes from east to west, from Le Bretons to just east of the Rideau River, represents the east-west tunnel alignment, and the storage tunnel will also have a north-south alignment shown in red under Kent Street. This configuration provides a number of benefits. It allows us to achieve our combined sewer overflow reduction objectives. It provides operational flexibility, and it also provides benefit in terms of flood control. The total length of the tunnel in terms of both east-west, north-south, totals 6 kilometers with a 3-meter diameter, and the tunnel will be located 15 to 30 meters in depth. Now, in terms of depth, it is deeper than the Confederation Line tunnel, so there will not be any conflicts with the Confederation Line tunnel where the two tunnels intersect just east of the Rideau Canal. Also draw to your attention on the left-hand side, there is a small section of the tunnel in LeBreton Flats area that is being coordinated with and delivered by the Rideau Transit Group as part of the Confederation Line construction, because that section of tunnel falls within the same construction limits. So in terms of some of the challenges, as we work through the design, we're also working through some of the challenges that are involved with such a significant undertaking. One of the main challenges remains the funding commitment to be able to proceed to construction. And as I previously indicated, as soon as we have the details on the funding application, we will be in a position to proceed with the application. On the technical side, we have done a lot of geotechnical work that has allowed us to confirm the rock depth, which in turn has allowed us to confirm the alignment. And we're also looking at some of the design and construction details, since there are some sections, localized sections, where the depth of rock is not as high as other locations. In terms of the actual tunnel construction, tunneling is a very specialized field, and the type of equipment that can be used is very much subject to the type of soils that need to be tunneled, the rock depths, and some of the final design elements. So we're all factoring that into our project at this time. We also recognize that across North America, there are hundreds and hundreds of tunnel projects ongoing, which is putting pressure in terms of the availability of equipment. So those factors combined are elements that we are looking at as part of the design process to try to limit any construction delays. Finally, this type of project, certainly the scope and magnitude, does require land acquisition and also property access negotiations. That involves both our federal partner and private properties. And we certainly continue to work through those negotiations, recognizing that we are still waiting for the funding commitment, so we are proceeding in a cautious manner. So at this point, that ends my presentation. I will turn it back to Dixon to do a bit of a wrap-up.
Thank you, Alain. And I think I'd like to wrap up, if I may, with a graphic, a presentation that sort of describes where we started, where we've started, where we are today, and where we're going to end up. And I think what we'll see in a second are three side-by-side displays of the Ottawa River, indicating the bacterial water quality as a result of combined sewage overflows. And in the top stream, we will see where we were before implementing the real-time control system. In the middle swim lane, if you will, we will see the present condition of where we are. And finally, in the third, we'll get a depiction as to where we're modeling the Ottawa River will be at the end of the ORAP program. And as always, the colors will indicate the intensity. So the red color indicates a higher concentration of E. coli, whereas the black less. So with that, if I can, we'll start a rainfall that occurred back in 1980, and which is one of the design storms. Here we are at the current condition, and as we start to see, you'll see, if I can ask that we stop it at that point, you'll notice here we are after a number of hours following a rainstorm. In the original condition, there is a large group of the red colored area in the top stream. That has been reduced quite significantly in terms of the red, and a much greater proportion of yellow, and the overall bulk of that has been reduced. And with the RTC and combined sewage storage tunnel, it's very, very difficult to see any influence on the Ottawa River. If we start the animation again, we can now see right about now, we're at about 24 hours past the rainfall event itself, and as you'll notice, the bulk of the red material, the higher concentration in the original condition, was just now arriving at Petrie Island. It's now a sunny day and everyone's streaming out to the beach. whereas we've made big progress with the real-time control. The quality has been improved, and with the combined sewage storage end added, there isn't a significant influence on the quality of river water at that point. And I think that's the objective the Council has set for us, and the one which we're working hard to implement as quickly as we possibly can. With that, I think we can let that run to its conclusion. So I'd like to thank, if I may, Alain Gontier, obviously from Infrastructure Services and Planning and Growth Management and Finance, all for their assistance in putting together this presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weir and Mr. Gontier. Now, Ms. Shepherd is here this morning, the Deputy City Manager, and so if any members of committee have questions for the Deputy City Manager, Ms. Shepherd is willing to stay for those questions. I have one that I'm going to ask, so I'm going to ask Ms. Shepherd if she'll come up. And if committee members don't have questions for Ms. Shepherd, she's got another meeting she'd like to go to. So with the will of committee, we'll direct our first questions to Ms. Shepherd. So again, Ms. Shepherd, thank you very much for the work that you've done on this project. And I know last week when we were waiting for the federal budget to come down, I asked you the number one question. If the Build Canada Fund is starting up, how ready are we to go that we can have our application to be not just the first thing out of the front door at the City of Ottawa, but hopefully the first application on the desk of the minister? And your answer was awesome. You said, we're lickety-split, that we've got everything ready to go. So I appreciate that from the money end. But I'm most concerned about land acquisition. So it's one thing for us to have our design done. We've got the money aside from the municipality. We know the province and the feds are talking about partnering with us again. We have the great relationship the mayor is forming with the new mayor of Gatineau. So a lot of things are lining up. Tell us about land acquisition and any kind of construction disruption that will take place leading up to Canada's birthday in 2017.
Madam Chair, thank you for the question. Is that better? So the land acquisition takes some time and would be on the critical path for this project. And so we will be ready to put our application in when the federal government releases the criteria and the application forms. Our experience with the stimulus fund is that even when we're out the door immediately with our application, the approval process can take some time. Property acquisition is an eligible cost typically with the provincial government, so we do not want to start the property acquisition process until we actually have an approved funding envelope that we can go against, and they will be very clear in terms of eligible costs would only start at a certain date. So that's a risk factor with this project in terms of not being able to start that acquisition until we know we've got funds. We're looking at that. We're looking at alternatives as well. And then your second question is in terms of 2017, and I think Council has been extremely clear the importance of making sure that construction that happens on this project or other projects, to the extent that's possible, that there's no evidence or very minimal evidence during 2017 to facilitate the celebration of Canada's birthday. And so those are constraints that we're working within, and they could, depending on how things unfold with federal and provincial funding, certainly can affect the timelines going forward.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. To further elaborate on land acquisition, is there any recent experience that either you or Mr. Gontier may have with regards to land acquisition and the process you just described in terms of the length of time it could take and that sort of thing?
Madam Chair, I don't have specific months. I know that with our REPTO colleagues, we have certainly experienced with the light rail project. We have to make an assumption that for private lands we would be expropriating, and that does require a certain length of time for us to secure those lands. So when I talk to you about the critical path, I'm using those time frames, although I don't have the actual number of months and the specific time frames for expropriation in front of me today.
But it's on the agenda. We're aware that it's a challenge, if you will. But I want to hear you tell us it's not insurmountable, and that if everything lines up with funding, that we are full steam ahead with this project.
Madam Chair, that is absolutely correct. We are so well advanced and ready to go. Sorry?
Yes, it's not insurmountable.
Yes, Madam Chair, not insurmountable.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn the floor over now to Conseiller Fleury. And again, for members of committee who are here, if anybody has a specific question or questions for our Deputy City Manager, we'll do those first with respect because the Deputy City Manager has to go elsewhere. So, Councillor Fleury.
Yes, Madame la Présidente. My questions are for Ms. Shepherd. They're for Dixon Weir specifically. Yeah, I can hold off.
Just a sec. So do any committee members want to ask Ms. Shepherd directly any questions? Okay. Ms. Shepherd, thank you again for being here, and thanks for your leadership on this file. Okay. And can we set Councillor Fleury's clock back to 5 minutes, please? Thank you. Conseiller Fleury, floor is all yours.
Yes, Ms. Madame la Présidente. So, Mr. Weir, good presentation. I think that for us, seeing the visual really illustrates the benefits of the changes to the combined sewer overflow elements. I'm wondering, in one of the slides you speak of storm outfall monitoring. Can you maybe detail that for me on what it means?
Chair, through you to the councillor, there are some 18 discharges to the Rideau and Ottawa rivers that could potentially be combined sewage overflow outlets, of which 5 have in the past represented over 95% of the combined sewage overflow. What we wanted to do is look at the other 13 and see which of those represented a real risk of contributing to an overflow and a discharge to the environment, because many of them in most years won't have any discharge whatsoever. So what we went through is a risk-based assessment to try to determine which of those were at risk of actually resulting in a discharge, and for which we felt it prudent to install continuous monitoring so that we would have the ability to confirm if in fact an overflow may have occurred. And so that's how we went through that combined sewage overflow monitoring program.
Thank you. My understanding is that now we're somewhere in the 99% mark of capturing, but we're only working on the point percentages to get us closer to the 100%. Is that correct?
Certainly, Chair, through you to the councillor, that's very, very much the case. In fact, we're well over 99.5% of all collected sewage goes to full secondary treatment, and that is one of the highest capture and treatment rates in the province.
So now that we seem to have a plan, or we have a plan related to the sewage overflow, I wonder if, speaking with the project management team and in the past speaking to members of your team, we've talked about other pollutants going into the water. Mainly, we have the geeses, we have everything related to the roads itself, right? The cars, it goes through the channels and makes its way onto our rivers. We have the salt that we use on our roads. There doesn't seem to be a clear strategy to address that, because a lot of the energy that's being put into the sewage is to actually allow access for leisure use of our water. So I'm wondering if you could speak on those 3 specific elements.
Chair, with respect to what you speak of, you're absolutely correct, is that there is a very significant environmental load that's placed on the Ottawa River or any receiving water by stormwater. And for that reason, the control and management of the stormwater, especially within the city core, which didn't have the benefit of developing at a point at a time when we would standardly put stormwater controls and ponds in place, need addressing. And for that reason, we're looking at things like the Pinecrest Creek Westboro pilot. That was one initiative that started us down trying to understand what the impact of uncontrolled stormwater would be as measured in the Pinecrest Creek. And the other large area of the city, as you may have noticed on the map, is the eastern subwatersheds work, where we're looking at Greens Creek, Bilberry Creek, Taylor Creek, and Voyageur Creek, all of which are carrying some of those uncontrolled and untreated stormwater retrofits into the Ottawa River. And the intent is to try to come with a number of projects that will probably rely on a series of efforts, be they stormwater ponds. Where those aren't available, then we will go to things like green infrastructure, and if not, try to encourage different on-lot level type of controls. And for that reason, we're going ahead with pilot work, trying to identify opportunities for improvement, first in the Pinecrest Creek Westboro area, and then secondly with the Eastern Subwatershed. That report will come forward with a number of possible solutions and identify what are the various tools that we can use to reduce the impact of that stormwater on the Ottawa River. With respect to salt storage, you mentioned, I know that I'm not able to speak to you directly on that, but I do know that the Public Works people have put together a salt management plan and are following that very closely, all with an intent of trying to reduce the impact of that material on our environment.
Yeah, and I know they're doing what they can, but it's still the recognizing that the salt does make its way into our waters, and it does have an impact on our ecosystem. I wonder, you spoke of some of the impacts and how we try to mitigate the three components that I described earlier. We're going to attempt to do the Greenway on Stewart. I do think that will see positive impacts, but is that seen as a pilot, or is that seen as a strategy that will, as we redo streets or as new strategies come in, we'll be able to fully implement across our city?
I think it will be looked upon as a pilot, because there are so many needs within that right-of-way, and trying to accommodate all of those is a difficult piece. And some of the learning that we've done in the Pinecrest area is, trying to find projects for which we can satisfy all of the demands in that right-of-way is oftentimes difficult. So this is a first effort for us in any sort of scale, I would suggest, and we'll try to take that approach to other opportunities as they present themselves with infrastructure renewal.
Well, I'll just finish on this comment. I think that's where it does become tough, because we do have a strategy of planting more trees, which will help in terms of absorption of those of the storms, of the rain. But it does feel like the more we do hard surfaces, the harder it is. The more we have to capture, and the more we have to divide the sewers so that we're able to meet the demand. So it is something that, we do more planting. We need to recognize the importance of soft landscaping and absorption rates in our soil, and it does have an impact when there are hard surfaces.
Councillor Fletty, I can speak to that as well. As part of the roundtable coming up this year, those are the exact kind of issues that we want to hear more about. And when Leanne Snedden comes forward with the update with regards to the sub-eastern watersheds study that's going on, a huge component of that in the eastern part of the city, because of the stormwater management in that city, is going to be talking to residents about exactly what you said. So more softer landscaping, use of rain barrels, plantings, and that sort of thing. Because you're absolutely correct. The more hard surfaces we produce, the more runoff, the more impact on our system, and ultimately the risk of any of that getting into the water. So appreciate that comment. Anything else? Councillor Fletty, you're good? You're good? Okay. Next, Councillor Hubley.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My question has to do with the costs of the program that Mr. Gauthier was talking about. The $195 million, that's quite an increase over where we started just a few short years ago on this project. You said this is a functional Class D. So what's the contingency amount on that 195?
So, Madam Chair, the first estimate that was provided was right after the approval of the Ottawa River Action Plan, and at that point, although it was identified as a strategy to have storage for combined sewer overflows, we hadn't really outlined yet what approach would be used to be able to accomplish that. So when we brought forward to this committee last January the environmental assessment, at that point we had gone through that assessment to look at different storage opportunities, and landed on the tunnel as the preferred approach, and as such we were able to refine our estimate on that basis. We need to keep in mind that the 195 also is one that we've projected in time, recognizing that the project will actually only be built in a few years from now, so we've already factored that into the process. When we also brought the in 2013 to council, we presented the project delivery review. What that entailed was basically how do we try to improve the estimating practices that we have, so that when we are presenting them to community and council, that there's a higher degree of confidence in those estimates. So part of that includes building in allowances for uncertainties. So the earlier we are in the process, the more uncertainties there are with the actual project itself, and as such we include higher allowances for those uncertainties. As we move through the design process and we near the actual tender stage, at that point our level of confidence increases as those uncertainties get eliminated or get addressed, and as such we're able to reduce the contingency allowances. So for this project, we're still dealing at a Class C level, so we're still looking at in the order of 30% in terms of just the contingency. But it's also important to keep in mind that we're also including other allowances for other unknowns at this point, utilities. We haven't completed the land negotiation, so there are allowances for land. So again, as we move forward in the project, there will be higher certainty on those, and we'll be able to decrease the contingency allowances.
Okay, thank you very much.
And when you're answering questions, do you just mind keeping the mic close? Because at the end, I didn't hear what you said at the very end of that sentence. It drifted off on the microphone.
Apologies, Madam Chair. What I was indicating was that as we're getting closer to the actual tender estimate, once we've completed the design, a lot of those uncertainties will no longer be uncertainties. They will be known, they will be quantified, and as such we will be able to reduce the allowances that we provide for contingencies as we move closer to the tender stage.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Hubley. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. There's some questions on the stormwater. We've had programs on the books for many, many years to reduce the stormwater amount that goes to Greens Creek. One of them was the disconnecting of the drainage pipes from private homes that are now sending stormwater, rainwater right into our stormwater system. So how have we done with disconnecting those pipes?
Chair, through you to the councillor, I'm not familiar with that project. I am generally aware that the former city of Ottawa had a downspout disconnection program, and perhaps that's what we're speaking of. I would mention, though, that in terms of the overall flow that's arriving at the Arnold Picard Environmental Centre, we had an extremely low flow year at the Picard Centre. And I think to some extent that gives us a bit of an indication as to how successful some of our infrastructure maintenance programs have been, some of our renewal programs, and in fact some of the behaviors of residents in terms of reducing the amount of stormwater that's coming for treatment at the Picard Centre.
Well, since we're into climate change and we're going to have significant storms at some point, I think we could do some work on being prepared. So there's no longer any kind of disconnect program, is what you're saying.
Madam Chair, maybe I can elaborate a bit. When we are doing sewer and renewal projects in those areas where there are connections, we make it part of the project to actually disconnect the system at that point. So that's part of our renewal program. Another opportunity for the disconnect is actually part of the protective plumbing program, where before we provide funding grants, we will require that disconnect to be proceeding before we issue the grant. So those are our two key opportunities to allow that disconnect program to move forward.
Okay, that's good to hear. And tell me about rain barrels. At one point we gave them away, then we sold them at a greatly reduced rate. Do we have any kind of program now for rain barrels?
No. Chair, through you to the council, no, the city does not have a rain barrel program in place today.
So how are we encouraging people to use rain barrels?
Chair, through you, I think that's part of what some of the sub-watershed work is going to come forward with. What are the opportunities that we can encourage people to use things like lot level work, like rain barrels, like downspout disconnection? Those are some of the incentives that will likely be considered as part of the Eastern Sub-Watershed pilot work.
And I thought that as part of the whole planning strategy, we were trying to get rid of hard surfaces and get in more soft surface as the cheapest way to deal with rainwater. How are we doing with that?
I don't know of any measure that would be able to give us an indication on that.
So we don't have a program?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So the little two pilots this year, Stewart and Sunnyside, that is to provide more soft surface in those rights-of-way?
That's correct.
We have not done that elsewhere.
Not to my understanding, no.
And other cities are doing stormwater piping into those soft surface treatment areas. Are we doing that?
I was hoping that I might be able to call on Leanne Snedden to help us out on some of the details. There we are. Sorry. Perhaps Leanne can help us with some of the programs being contemplated for pilots in the Eastern Sub-Watershed area.
Madam Chair, we're just working on the Eastern Subwatershed program, and that will come forward later at the end of this year. The consultants on that project will be recommending 3 different scenarios. Well, they'll be examining options for retrofits on city property, the right-of-way, and on potential opportunities for individual lots. So I think that would address potentially some of the rain barrel questions that you have asked for, Councillor. And these 2 projects are 2 pilot projects. Staff need the opportunity to be able to examine how these catch basins and these bioretention facilities will be working. And if they pose themselves successful, we will be learning lessons from those and hopefully then be able to speak to Council about other future opportunities.
So you are taking stormwater and feeding into these soft surface elements on Sunnyside and Stewart?
That is correct.
Good. Because I certainly had a massive fight on my hands on Somerset Street, the bridge over the O-train, trying to get landscaped areas. And thank God for John Manconi coming in and saying, yes, let's just do it. But it is not easily done. There's no system here or interest here in providing soft surfaces and trees and trying to get some water retention in the soil rather than every drop going into our stormwater management system. So I'll be very interested in finding out how Sunnyside and Stewart do, and I look forward to many of my own streets being done in the same way. Thanks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Holmes. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak or ask any questions regarding ORAP? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much to our staff for their presentation. I appreciate that. So on the Ottawa River Action Plan status update, is that item received? Received? Okay, thank you. Next item, are there any notices of motion for consideration at the next meeting? None. Are there any inquiries? Councillor Hubley, can you read your inquiry, and we also have it in writing.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My inquiry has to do with the requirements for splash pads. I'll read it out. It's very brief. Stated in the new rules and guidelines for splash pad connections to the sewer system, no system is permitted to discharge to the storm sewer system. This new requirement has taken the cost of these popular park amenities from in the $100,000 range to over $400,000 per park, and is denying communities a fun, safe means of outdoors activity for children. Can staff please clarify as to why the water used by street cleaning vehicles as well as regular residential outdoor and maintenance use is permitted to enter a storm sewer directly, while the water from these splash pads during the on-season must first go through the sanitary system? My second question is, has staff explored alternative methods of recycling the water or delivering the service? And what can we do to make this a more affordable feature in our city parks? Please provide background on how this change came into effect and whether other changes are being considered that could result in removing family-friendly activities from our park. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Hubley. So, Mr. Weir, I presume that this is a wastewater management issue, but you'll be working with Parks and Recreation as well on the answer to the inquiry?
Yes, Chair, we will.
Okay, and I'm going to ask Mr. Weir, as part of the answer to this inquiry, can you make sure that any staff internal memos, documents, anything that speaks to this policy, whether it's a change that has been sent to Parks and Rec, is provided to members of council?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you very much. So there's no other business. Before we adjourn, a couple things. I want to remind members of committee that our next committee meeting is March the 24th. So you'll notice that's a change from the date. It was too close to March break, and some people had indicated they weren't going to be here. So our next committee meeting is 24th of March. And again, want to thank staff, especially our clerk's office, for the work that they've done to help. So again, we're adjourned, and thank you very much. Councillor Hubley? Sorry, just a sec. Councillor Hubley. Can I have a mic for Councillor Hubley, please? Thank you.
Madam Chair, I believe we were going to ask Mr. Weir about the report on waste management technologies.
We're talking about that offline, Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so is everybody, okay, so there's no other inquiries? Okay, so thank you, everybody. The meeting is now adjourned.